All these years, I thought I was a servant, but I was stolen from a fortune. My name is Lena Carter. I am 28 years old, and last Saturday, at my brother's wedding, a stranger looked me dead in the eye and asked me one question that shattered everything I thought I knew about my life. There were 150 guests in that ballroom, crystal chandeliers, champagne towers, a 12-piece orchestra. Everyone was celebrating Michael, my golden child brother. And there I was, standing in the corner, like I had spent the last 28 years unnoticed, unimportant. But then this woman approached me. She leaned in close, and she whispered, "All these years, you thought you were born to serve. But what if you were stolen and everything they told you was a lie?" I didn't understand what she meant. Not then. But before I tell you what happened next, if you have ever felt overlooked in your own family, hit that subscribe button. Because this story is about to show you why you should never accept the role someone else assigns you. Let me take you back to the beginning. Growing up, I learned early that I wasn't the priority. 3 moments taught me exactly where I stood. I was 7. It was my birthday, the 12th of April. My mom had promised me a party. Just cake, a few friends, maybe some balloons. But that morning, Michael had a piano recital. Nothing important, just a spring showcase. My parents decided we all had to go. I sat in the audience in my birthday dress, watching Michael play Fr Elise, while my friends waited at our house for a party that never happened. My mom said, "We will do something next week, Lena." We never did. At 16, I won a full scholarship to a summer arts program in New York. Competitive, only 20 students nationwide. I had worked months on my portfolio, stayed up late every night. That same week, Michael made varsity soccer. My dad threw him a surprise party, invited all the neighbors, hung a banner that said, "Congratulations, Michael." When I showed my mom the scholarship letter at dinner, she glanced at it. "That is nice, honey." Then she turned back to my dad to plan Michael's celebration trip to Disneyland. I never mentioned the scholarship again, never went to New York. At 24, I got promoted executive assistant at a boutique design firm in San Francisco. A $15,000 raise, real responsibility. I called home that evening, excited, "Mom, I got promoted." "That is great, sweetheart," she said, distracted. "Hey, did you hear about Michael? He is closing his first major deal." I congratulated them both. Then I hung up and cried for 2 hours. That is when I understood. They didn't see me. To them, I was background noise in the story of Michael's success. But here is what they didn't know. For 10 years, I had been collecting evidence. Not consciously at first, just noticing things that didn't add up. I didn't look like anyone in my family. Michael had my dad's eyes, my mom's smile, but me green eyes when theirs were brown. Different hair, different build. When I asked as a kid, my mom said I took after my grandmother. But I had seen her pictures. I looked nothing like her. At 18, I found my birth certificate in my parents' filing cabinet. The date was right, the 12th of April, 1997. But something felt off. The paper was too new. The seal looked different from Michael's birth certificate, framed in his room like a trophy. I made a copy, hid it. Over the next decade, I collected more. A photo of a woman I didn't recognize, tucked into a book my mom never opened. Strange comments from distant relatives. "You look so much like her," that my parents would quickly shut down. At 25, I took a DNA test. Didn't tell anyone. The results came back inconclusive, no close matches, just distant cousins I had never heard of. But I kept the file. Everything in a locked box under my bed, because deep down I always knew. I felt like a piece of my story had been taken from me. I just didn't know how to find it. So I played my role. Went to family dinners, smiled through conversations about Michael's achievements, sent birthday cards and Christmas gifts. Until last Saturday, until that wedding, until a stranger looked at me and said the words that would change everything. "You need to understand what it costs to live like this." The financial cost was real, but not the worst part. Over the years, I spent about $8.00 on family expenses. I was never asked to contribute to gifts for Michael's milestones. helping my parents during tight months, paying my own way at family vacations. While Michael's expenses were always covered, I never complained. I kept giving because maybe, if I was helpful enough, they would finally see me. The real cost ran deeper. It was the therapist I started seeing at 25. Because I couldn't understand why I felt so hollow. The nights lying awake, wondering what was fundamentally wrong with me. Why wasn't I enough? It was relationships I sabotaged because I didn't believe anyone could actually want me. Promotions I didn't apply for because I had been conditioned to think I wasn't exceptional. It was the version of myself I never became. Because I was too busy trying to earn love from people who had already decided I wasn't the priority. By 28, I had made peace with it. Or convinced myself I had. Then my brother got engaged. Michael's fiancée, Jessica, came from old money. Her family owned a chain of luxury hotels. The wedding would be a spectacle, her parents insisted. My parents were ecstatic. This was everything they had hoped for Michael. A beautiful, wealthy wife, entry into a world they had always admired but never quite reached. Wedding planning consumed our family for 6 months. I helped, of course. I always helped. I spent 2 weekends addressing invitations, because my mom said my handwriting was nicer. I researched vendors, made spreadsheets. I even paid $1,200 for my bridesmaid dress, a pale blue monstrosity I had never wear again, because Michael asked me to be in the wedding party. Not because he wanted me there, because Jessica needed an even number of bridesmaids. I knew that. But I said yes anyway. Jessica herself was polite, but distant. She would thank me for helping, then turn to discuss flowers with my mom, like I was hired staff once. When I suggested a different color scheme, she smiled tightly. That is sweet, Lena, but we are going with my vision. My mom nodded in agreement. The week before the wedding, my mom called. Lena, honey, we need a favor. Jessica's cousin canceled, and we need someone to manage the guest book and gift table. Would you mind? I was already in the wedding party. Already spent money on the dress, shoes, hair, makeup. Now she wanted me to work the reception. What about my spot in the processional? Pause. Well, we figured you wouldn't mind stepping out. You are so good at organizing, and we really need someone reliable. I could have said no. Should have said no. Okay, Mom. I will do it. You are a lifesaver, sweetheart. We knew we could count on you. That was my breaking point. Not when she asked. When I said yes, because I realized I would never be more than this to them. Never the daughter they celebrated. Always the one they relied on to make things easier. I had no idea that in 48 hours, everything I believed about my life was about to shatter. The wedding was exactly what you would expect, over the top. Extravagant. The venue was a 5-star hotel ballroom in downtown San Francisco. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the bay. White roses everywhere, Jessica's favorite. A champagne fountain that probably cost more than my car. And 150 guests, family, friends, business associates. Everyone dressed to impress. I spent the ceremony in the back row. I had been quietly removed from the processional, and no one mentioned it. I watched Michael and Jessica exchange vows. Watched my parents cry tears of joy. Watched everyone celebrate the golden couple, and I felt nothing. Not sadness. Not anger, just emptiness. The reception was a blur. I stood by the gift table like I was told, smiled at guests, made small talk, played my role. Around 9 p.m., I stepped outside for air. The terrace was quieter, a few people smoking, a couple taking photos, city lights stretched out below. I leaned against the railing and closed my eyes. Lena, I turned. She was older. Maybe late 60s, elegant. Silver hair pulled back in a neat bun. Dark blue dress, pearls. I didn't recognize her. I am sorry, do I know you? She studied my face for a long moment. Her eyes were kind, but there was something heavy in them. Something sad. No, she said softly. But I knew your mother. I blinked. My mom's inside. Susan. Do you want me to not Susan? She interrupted gently. Your real mother. The world stopped. I stared at her. She stepped closer, voice low so no one else could hear. My name is Margaret Hughes. I was your biological mother's nanny. She loved you more than anything, and she spent the last 28 years trying to find you. I couldn't breathe. I don't understand, I whispered. Margaret reached into her purse, pulled out a small envelope. She passed away 2 months ago. But before she died, she made me promise to find you. To give you this. She held out the envelope. I didn't take it. Couldn't move. This is insane. You have the wrong person. I don't. Margaret's voice was firm. Look at me, Lena. Look at your hands, your eyes. You don't look like Susan or Richard. You never have. She was right. I knew she was right, but I couldn't accept it. Not here, not now. Why would they? My voice broke. Take this. Margaret pressed the envelope into my hands. Read it when you are ready. Everything you need to know is in here. Birth certificate, letters, proof. Proof of what? Margaret's eyes filled with tears. That you are not Lena Carter. You are Elena Whitmore, and you are the sole heir to a $12 million estate. I felt the ground disappear beneath me. Your mother, your real mother, her name was Catherine Whitmore. 28 years ago, her newborn daughter was stolen from the hospital. I shook my head, backing away. This is she never stopped looking for you. Margaret's voice cracked. And when I saw you tonight, standing alone in that ballroom, I knew. I knew it was you. Behind us, laughter from the reception, music, my family celebrating. They had no idea. Margaret pressed the envelope into my hands one more time. You deserve the truth, Elena. You deserve everything that was taken from you. She turned to leave, then paused. When you are ready, call me. My number's in the envelope. I will help you however I can. And then she was gone. I stood there, holding the envelope, hands trembling. Inside, the party continued. My brother's wedding. My parents' proudest moment. And I realized everything I had believed about myself, about my life, about my place in this family. It was all a lie. I didn't go back inside right away. Couldn't. I sat on a bench, opened the envelope with shaking hands, and began to read. And with every word, my entire world came undone. The envelope contained 5 things. First, a birth certificate, official, stamped. Dated the 12th of April, 1997. But the name wasn't Lena Carter. It was Elena Grace Whitmore. Mother Catherine Ann Whitmore. Father unknown. I stared at it until the words blurred. Second, a hospital bracelet. Tiny, infant-sized. Still had the plastic tag, Baby Girl Whitmore. 4 divided by 12, divided by 97, 6 pounds, 3 ounces. I held it in my palm and felt something crack open inside me. Third, a photograph. A woman holding a newborn baby. The woman was young, maybe early 30s, dark hair, green eyes. My eyes. She was looking down at the baby with an expression I had never seen on Susan's face. Pure love, unbridled joy. On the back, someone had written, Catherine and Elena, first day. Fourth, a handwritten letter on expensive stationery. The handwriting was shaky, like it had been written by someone sick. My dearest Elena, it began. If you are reading this, it means Margaret found you. It means I didn't give up, even when I couldn't search anymore. I don't know what they have told you. I don't know what life you have lived, but I need you to know this. I wanted you. I loved you from the moment I knew you existed, and you were stolen from me. Margaret will help you understand. But please know that I spent 28 years looking for you. I hired investigators. I followed every lead. I never stopped hoping. You are my daughter. You are a Whitmore. And you are owed everything that was taken from you. I am sorry I couldn't find you sooner. I am sorry I couldn't be the mother you deserved, but you are not alone. You have never been alone. All my love, Catherine. I read it 3 times before I could breathe again. And 5th, a business card. James Patterson, estate attorney, on the back. Elena Whitmore, sole beneficiary. $12 million estate. Contact immediately. I sat there on that terrace, holding my entire life in my hands, and I realized I didn't have to be invisible anymore. I had proof. I had a name. I had power. And I was going to use it. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my apartment, staring at the documents spread across my kitchen table. Birth certificate, letter photograph, business card, evidence of a life I never knew I had. By morning, I had made a decision. I wasn't going to run to my parents and demand answers. I wasn't going to cry or beg or ask them why. I was going to be strategic, because if Margaret was right, if I really had been stolen, then Susan and Richard Carter knew exactly what they had done, and I needed to prove it. First step, verify everything. I called Margaret at 8 a.m. "I knew you had call," she said when she answered. "Tell me everything." For the next 2 hours, Margaret told me the story I should have known my whole life. Catherine Whitmore came from old San Francisco money. Her family built their fortune in shipping in the early 1900s. By the time Catherine was born, the Whitmores owned real estate across the city: buildings, hotels, investment portfolios. Catherine was an only child. Her parents died when she was 25, leaving her the entire estate. She never married. But in early 1997, she got pregnant. Never told anyone who the father was, but she was thrilled to become a mother. Margaret had been her nanny growing up and stayed on as her personal assistant and friend. On the 12th of April, 1997, Catherine gave birth at St. Francis Hospital in San Francisco. A healthy baby girl, Elena Grace Whitmore. Catherine was exhausted but overjoyed. Margaret stayed with her until visiting hours ended, then went home to prepare the nursery. The next morning when Margaret returned, Catherine was hysterical. The baby was gone. The hospital claimed there had been a mix-up, a transfer, a clerical error. But Catherine knew. She knew her daughter had been taken. She filed police reports, hired private investigators, offered rewards. But there were no leads, no suspects. The hospital's records were incomplete, conveniently lost in a filing system update. Catherine never gave up. She searched for 28 years, but last year she was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. She died 2 months ago, still believing her daughter was out there. "How did you know it was me?" I asked. "Your eyes," Margaret said, Catherine's eyes, "and your birthday." Michael mentioned it in his speech, how his little sister always made the 12th of April about her. When he said that date, I looked at you across the room and I just knew. I closed my eyes. Susan and Richard. How did they? "I don't know the details," Margaret said carefully. But Richard worked at St. Francis Hospital in 1997, administrative coordinator, access to records, access to the maternity ward. My stomach turned. "You think he stole me?" "I think he and Susan wanted a baby, and Richard saw an opportunity." I felt sick. "Can we prove it?" "That is where the lawyer comes in. James Patterson. He has been Catherine's estate attorney for 30 years. He has documentation, financial records, hospital files Catherine's investigators collected. And the estate? 12 million real estate, investments, trust funds. Catherine updated her will 2 years ago. If her daughter is ever found, everything goes to her. I sat back, mind racing. What do I do? "First, DNA test," Margaret said. "We have Catherine's medical records. We can confirm you are her biological daughter. How long does that take?" 2 weeks, maybe 3. Then we contact James. He will help you establish your legal identity as Elena Whitmore, and he will help you claim what is rightfully yours. What about Susan and Richard? That is your choice. If you want to press charges: fraud, kidnapping, identity theft, James can help. But you don't have to. You can just walk away. I thought about that. Walk away. Take the money and disappear. But something burned inside me. Something that had been building for 28 years. "I want them to know," I said. "I want them to see what they did to me." Margaret was quiet for a moment. "Then we will make sure they do." Over the next 4 weeks, I worked with Margaret and James Patterson. DNA tests submitted, 2 weeks of waiting, checking my phone every hour. Then the call, positive match. I was Catherine Whitmore's biological daughter. Legal documentation, birth certificate validated, hospital records reviewed. Identity confirmed. Estate transfer. Paperwork filed. In progress. And all the while, I went to family dinners, smiled at my parents, texted Michael about wedding. Thank you cards. I played the role I had always played. Because I was waiting, Michael's 30th birthday was coming up in 3 weeks. My parents were throwing him a party, a gala at the same hotel where his wedding had been. 120 guests, business partners, family friends, the perfect audience, and I was going to give them a show they would never forget. Michael's birthday gala was everything you would expect. Black tie, open bar, jazz band. The hotel ballroom decorated in gold and black, Michael's favorite colors. Apparently, I wouldn't have known. I had never been asked. My parents had spared no expense again. I arrived early, wearing a dress I had bought specifically for this night. Simple, black, elegant. Nothing like the invisible girl they were used to. Margaret was already there, seated near the back. She gave me a small nod. James Patterson, the estate attorney, was positioned near the stage. Everything was in place. I watched guests arrive. Colleagues from Michael's firm, Jessica's wealthy family, distant relatives. Everyone congratulating my parents on raising such a successful son. No one noticed me. Not yet. At 8 p.m., my dad took the microphone to give a speech. Thank you all for coming, he said, voice warm and proud. Susan and I are so grateful to celebrate our son tonight. Michael, you have made us prouder than we ever imagined. 30 years old, junior partner at the firm, married to a wonderful woman. He went on for 5 minutes, listing Michael's achievements, praising his character. He didn't mention me once. When he finished, the room applauded. And then I stood up. I walked to the front, my heels clicking on the marble floor. My dad looked confused. Lena, honey, we are about to cut the cake. I need to say something. My voice was calm. The room went quiet. Michael frowned. Lena, this isn't really the time actually, it is the perfect time. I took the microphone from my dad's hand. I turned to face the crowd, 120 eyes on me. For once, I wasn't invisible. My name is Lena Carter, I began. At least, that is what I have been called for the last 28 years. My mom stood up, face pale. Lena, what are you doing? I ignored her. I grew up believing I was part of this family. I believed Susan and Richard were my parents. I believed Michael was my brother. I paused, letting the words settle. But 4 weeks ago, I learned the truth. I am not Lena Carter. I pulled a folder from my bag and held it up. My real name is Elena Whitmore, and I was stolen from my biological mother 28 years ago. Whispers started, low at first, then louder. Richard's face went white. That is ridiculous. You are being what? I said steadily. Truthful? Because I have documentation. Birth certificate. DNA test results. Hospital records. I nodded to James Patterson. He stood and walked to the front, carrying a briefcase. My name is James Patterson, estate attorney for the late Catherine Whitmore. I have verified all documentation. Elena Whitmore, known as Lena Carter, is the biological daughter of Catherine Whitmore, and the sole heir to her $12 million estate. Gasps rippled through the room. Phones came out, people started recording. Michael grabbed my arm. Lena, stop this. I pulled away. Don't touch me, you don't get to silence me anymore. Susan was crying now. Mascara running, Lena, please. We can explain what? My voice rose slightly, then steadied. How you stole a newborn from a hospital? How you raised her to be invisible, while you gave everything to your real son? Richard stepped forward, hands shaking. It wasn't like that. We saved you. Your mother Catherine. She was unstable. You are lying. The words were quiet, controlled, but they cut through the room. I turned to Margaret. She stood and walked to the front, posture regal. My name is Margaret Hughes. I was Catherine Whitmore's personal assistant and friend for 40 years. Catherine was not unstable. She was a loving mother whose child was stolen from her. She looked directly at Richard. And you worked at St. Francis Hospital in 1997. You had access to the maternity ward, to the records, to the babies. Richard's mouth opened and closed. No words came out. You wanted a child, Margaret continued, voice hard, and you saw an opportunity. You falsified documents. You erased Elena's identity, and you let Catherine spend 28 years searching for her daughter, while you raised that daughter as your own. Except you didn't really raise her, did you? You neglected her, made her invisible. The room was dead silent now. Susan sobbed into her hands. Michael stood frozen, face pale, and I felt something I would never felt before, power. I spent my entire life trying to earn your love, I said, looking at Susan and Richard. I thought if I was good enough, helpful enough, quiet enough, you would finally see me, but you never did, because I was never your daughter. I was just the stolen child you used to fill a gap in your life. I turned to Michael, and you were given everything, every opportunity, every bit of their love and attention, and you never once questioned why I was treated differently. Michael swallowed hard. Lena, I didn't know you didn't care, I corrected. There is a difference. I looked back at the crowd. I don't know what you will do with this information. That is not my concern. But I want you all to know the truth about this family, about who they really are. James stepped forward. As of today, Elena Whitmore's legal identity has been restored. The estate transfer is in progress. And if Miss Whitmore chooses to pursue criminal charges for fraud, kidnapping, and identity theft, I will support her fully. Richard stumbled backward. You cannot. We raised you. You used me, I said quietly. And now I am done. I handed the microphone back to James. And then I did something I had never done before. I walked out. No apology, no explanation, just left. Behind me chaos erupted, shouting, crying, the sound of chairs scraping, but I didn't look back. Margaret caught up with me in the lobby. You were magnificent, she said. I nodded, still shaking. What happens now? Now, Margaret said. You live the life you were always meant to have. The next morning, I woke up in a hotel room I would paid for with my own money. Money I had earned, not begged for. My phone had 47 missed calls. Susan, 18 calls. Richard, 12 calls. Michael, 17 calls. I deleted them all. Instead, I called James Patterson. I want to press charges. Are you sure? James asked carefully. It is going to be a long, difficult process. The DA will need to review, I am sure. Within 48 hours, James had filed a civil lawsuit against Susan and Richard Carter for fraud, identity theft, and emotional damages. I wasn't interested in sending them to prison, though the district attorney was reviewing the case. That process could take months, maybe longer. But the civil suit? That could move faster. I wanted them to lose what mattered to them most, their reputation. And it worked. The story broke in local news first. Socialite couple, accused of stealing heiress. Then, it went viral. By the end of the week, it was everywhere. News outlets, social media. Think pieces about privilege and stolen identity. Susan and Richard's friends stopped calling. Their country club membership was under review. Michael's firm quietly asked him to take a leave of absence while the situation resolved itself. And me. I moved into Catherine's house. My house. It was a beautiful Victorian in Pacific Heights. 3 stories. Original hardwood floors. A garden in the back. Margaret helped me go through Catherine's things. There were journals. Dozens of them. Filled with entries about me, about the search, about her love for a daughter she had never gotten to raise. The 12th of April, 1998, one entry read. Elena's first birthday. I wonder if she is walking yet. If she is happy, I will never stop looking. I promise you, my darling girl. I will never stop, I cried reading those words. But they weren't bitter tears. They were tears of recognition, of finally being seen. Catherine had loved me. She had wanted me. And that changed everything. 2 weeks after the gala, Susan called from a number I didn't recognize. I answered. Lena, Elena, please, we need to talk. We can make this right. No, I said calmly. You cannot. We gave you a home, you gave me a cage. My voice was steady, You made me feel worthless. You erased my identity. You stole my mother from me. We loved you, number you needed me. There is a difference. Love doesn't look like what you gave me. She was crying now. Please. Don't do this, don't destroy our family. I am not destroying anything. I am just refusing to be invisible anymore. And I hung up. Later that night, I met with James to review the estate details. 12 million in assets. Real estate, investment portfolios. Catherine had built an empire, and she had left it all to me. What do you want to do with it? James asked. I thought about that. I want to create something. A foundation. For children who have been displaced, stolen, lost. And for survivors of family neglect. James smiled. Catherine would have loved that. I nodded, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. The first 3 months were surreal. 3 months, I spent most of my time learning about Catherine, reading every journal entry, looking through photo albums, tracing the steps of her 28-year search for me. She had hired private investigators in 6 different states, put up missing child posters, even though I wasn't technically missing in the system, followed every possible lead, no matter how unlikely. She had never remarried, never had other children, because she never gave up on me. Margaret showed me Catherine's favorite places. The cafe where she had breakfast every Sunday. The art gallery where she had volunteered. 6 months, the civil case settled out of court. Susan and Richard's lawyer tried to argue they had adopted me through unofficial channels, and that the statute of limitations had expired. James demolished that argument in under 10 minutes. There was no adoption, no legal paperwork. Just a stolen baby and 28 years of lies. They signed a legal document, acknowledging they had fraudulently obtained custody of me, falsified records, and knowingly concealed my true identity. That document was filed with the court public record, permanent. They also agreed to pay $500,000 to the foundation I was creating in Catherine's name, blood money. But I would use it for something good. The criminal investigation was ongoing. The DA was reviewing, but these cases take time. I wasn't holding my breath. The public admission was enough. As for Michael, he tried to reach out a few times. The first message was defensive. You are tearing this family apart. The second was confused. I don't understand why you are doing this. The third was angry. You are selfish. Mom and Dad gave you everything. I didn't respond to any of them. But 9 months after the gala, he showed up at my house. I almost didn't answer the door, but something made me open it. He looked different. Thinner. Tired. Can I come in? I hesitated, then stepped aside. We sat in the living room, Catherine's living room, now mine, in uncomfortable silence. Jessica left me, he finally said. I didn't respond. Her family didn't want to be associated with the scandal, so she filed for divorce. I still said nothing. He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw something I had never seen before. Guilt. I didn't know, he said quietly. About any of it, I swear. You didn't ask, I said. You never questioned why I was treated differently. Why they celebrated you and ignored me. He flinched. You are right, I was selfish. I just thought that is how families worked. I thought you were okay. I wasn't. I know that now. He stood to leave, then turned back. I am sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything. But I am sorry. I looked at him, this man I had called my brother for 28 years. I don't forgive you, not yet. Maybe not ever. But I appreciate you saying it. He nodded and left. I didn't know if I would see him again, and I found I didn't really care. 1 year, my life looked completely different. I had quit my job as an executive assistant and enrolled in a graduate program for nonprofit management. The Catherine Whitmore Foundation was officially established. We focused on helping displaced children, funding investigations for families searching for missing loved ones, and supporting survivors of identity fraud. But we also added something unique: an online support network for people who had experienced family neglect. Weekly video sessions, anonymous chat rooms, resources for therapy and legal help. I hired a small team. Margaret served on the board. And for the first time, I was doing work that mattered to me, not work that made me useful to someone else. I also started therapy. Real, deep therapy. Because 28 years of being invisible doesn't disappear overnight, just because you have money and a new name. I had to learn how to take up space, how to believe I was worth the attention I received, how to stop apologizing for existing. It was hard. Some days I still catch myself shrinking, making myself small, but I recognize it now, and I choose differently. I also reconnected with distant relatives on Catherine's side, my side. A second cousin in Boston, an elderly aunt in Seattle. They welcomed me with open arms, shared stories about Catherine, about our family history, about where I came from. For the first time, I belonged somewhere. Not because I made myself useful, not because I stayed quiet, but because I was family. I dated too. Carefully. Alex Chen, an old friend from high school, reached out after seeing the news. I always wondered why you seemed so sad. He told me on our third date. Now I understand. He was kind. Patient. He didn't try to fix me. He just let me be. And that was enough. We have been together for 3 months now, taking it slow. Learning what healthy love actually looks like. As for Susan and Richard, I saw them one more time, at a mediation session required by the settlement. They looked older, smaller. Susan tried to apologize again. We thought we were doing the right thing. You knew exactly what you were doing, I said calmly. You stole a baby because you wanted one. You lied for 28 years. You let me believe I was worthless. Richard spoke up. We never meant to hurt you, but you did, and you cannot undo that. Susan reached for my hand. I pulled away. I need you to know that I don't hate you. I don't think about you enough to hate you, but I will never let you back into my life. You lost that privilege, they both cried. I didn't, because I had already cried enough for them. I walked out of that room and never looked back. It has been 2 years now since that wedding. Since Margaret whispered the question that changed everything. I am 30 years old. The same age Michael was when his world started falling apart. But my world, it is finally coming together. I am standing in the Foundation's new office space, in downtown San Francisco. We just helped reunite a mother with her daughter, after 15 years. The photos from their reunion are on my desk, and every time I look at them, I feel it that this work matters. Margaret still visits every week. She brings tea and stories about Catherine. She has become the grandmother I never had. Alex is here too. We have been together for a year now. He proposed last month. I said yes. Not because I need him, but because I want him. There is a difference. And I finally understand that. I still have hard days. Days when I spiral into wondering if I am enough. Days when the old programming kicks in and I start people-pleasing and making myself small. But I catch it now. I recognize it. And I choose differently. I have learned a few things in these 2 years. First, your identity is yours to reclaim. No one gets to tell you who you are. Not your family, not your past. Not the people who tried to keep you small. You decide. Second, neglect is a form of abuse. It is not always loud. It is not always obvious. But when someone consistently makes you feel invisible, when they prioritize others over you, when they make you believe you are not worth their time or love, that is abuse. And you don't owe them forgiveness just because they didn't hit you. Third, boundaries aren't cruel. They are survival. Cutting off people who hurt you isn't selfish. It is self-preservation. You are allowed to walk away from anyone who makes you feel less than you are. And finally, you cannot get back the years you lost. But you can make sure the years ahead are lived on your terms. That is what I am doing. I don't know what happened to Susan and Richard. I heard they moved out of state, that their friends abandoned them, that their money ran out. I don't care. They are not my problem anymore. Michael sends me a Christmas card every year. I don't respond. Maybe someday I will. Maybe I will not. But it is my choice now. I get to decide who gets access to me. And that power, that simple, beautiful power, is everything. If you have ever felt invisible in your own family, I want you to hear this. You are not the problem. You were never too much. You were never too little. You were always enough. The people who made you feel otherwise, they were wrong, and you don't have to stay in that story. You can write a new one. That is what I did. That is what I am still doing. And if I can do it after 28 years of believing I was meant to be small, meant to be invisible, then you can too. So if you have made it this far, thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, leave a comment. Tell me your story. Let's build a community of people who refuse to stay invisible. And if you haven't already, subscribe, because I will be sharing more about the foundation, about healing, about what it really takes to reclaim your life. You deserve to be seen. You deserve to take up space. And you deserve a life where you are not just surviving, you are thriving. I am finally living that life. And I am never going back.